But you know, with China taking recycling basically now, it's really put a cramp in their style over there. So
I gotta get a job so I can.
There we go. Good timing.
Call this meeting to order. Have any citizen comments tonight of anybody whose item's not on the agenda? Not, I'd like to welcome everyone tonight, and we'll consider the approval of the agenda. We might have one change, maybe move number 10L, which is related to county things, up to after 10E and F, which are also county things. Just so that if we have a county representative here, they're kind of all in the same order. But I would just ask for that amendment, but otherwise, we want to approve the agenda.
I'd so move as amended.
Second.
Clerk will call the roll.
Starr.
Aye.
Yeager.
Aye.
Friesman.
Aye.
Hammond.
Aye.
Malero.
Aye.
Agenda is approved. Next is consideration approval of the minutes of November 26th, December 3rd, and December 12th meetings. Any questions on the minutes?
So move.
Second.
Clerk will call the roll.
Yeager.
Aye.
Friesman.
Aye.
Hammond.
Aye.
Malero.
Aye.
Starr.
Aye.
Next is the approval of the consent calendar. Any questions on the consent calendar?
So moved.
Second.
Further discussion? Clerk will call the roll.
Friesman.
Aye.
Hammond.
Aye.
Malero.
Aye.
Starr.
Aye.
Yeager.
Aye.
Next is the business of the mayor, and I don't have anything tonight, so we'll move right on to the public hearing on a Charles City Comprehensive Plan. Steve, you want to start this off?
sure, yep, here we are. We're at the final stages of adopting our updated comprehensive plan. This is something that's been in the works for the last 3+ years, give or take. Slowed down by floods and other events, but nonetheless, we're at the point of completion. Myrtle Nelson is here tonight from NAGCOG, and she's the one that helped us walk through the process, so I'll turn it over to Myrtle and have her kind of fill us in, if she would.
Well, thank you, Steve, and I think you're right about that 3-year process. In fact, I think Tom Brownlow first talked to me about that before the floods of 2008. Believe it or not, that long ago. But happy to be working with the city of Charles City. Boy, what a neat community you have here. I just adore this community, and it has such a humility about itself. And so, anyway. When I asked Steve, you know, what would you like me to talk about tonight, he said, be brief, so don't worry. Don't worry, I won't be lengthy.
Comprehensive yet brief.
Comprehensive yet brief, yes, we'll go for that. Okay, so I'm just going to run over a few things about how we put the plan together, okay? So we started with the research phase because we wanted to get off the ground with some good basic demographics about what is here in Charles City, what we have today. And then also what other previous plans had come before this one, you know, so that we're not starting from scratch exactly, but we're starting from an informed place. So then we went through a process of getting input and developing strategies, and we did that first by talking with a few key staff who obviously are stakeholders in this community, like many of the others. And they too will see, I think, that this plan will be a really good tool to use when they're looking at not only what strategies to pursue, but also to have a planning document to prove in grant applications that, yes, the community supports this, and yes, this is a key need for our community. And so when you're writing an application, that makes a huge difference in your scoring in those applications. So I think that'll be a good tool for them. Then we had focus group meetings. We had 4 different focus groups where we coupled a few of the planning planning chapters into each group so that we could cover them in a fairly reasonable time frame. And so we had, believe it or not, 42 people who participated in those. And they were pretty lengthy meetings. And so I just really appreciate the willingness of so many people in your community to see molding the community as being an importance to them personally and being willing to share that kind of time with us. In the first round, they went through the strengths and weaknesses. Michael Hammond will remember all about that as he served as one of those 42. And also, they helped put together the survey. So that's the tool where we not only talked to 42 people, but we wanted a broader perspective on what the people in the community saw as key needs, what were their level of satisfaction with things about the community, and where do they think the priority should be in the future, so that we were able to believe it or not, reach 740 people with that survey, which I think is commendable. You know, that's almost 10% of your community. And I can thank the focus groups, I think, partly for that, because they weren't just there in the meetings. They were also beating the streets a little bit. Steve did a good job, I think, of getting the word out in several different ways as well. And so survey's only as good as your input. You know, if nobody or a small population responds, your input isn't as good. It isn't as helpful to your planning effort. And when I talked to you as council members, when we were first starting this, I asked, so what are your hot buttons? And so one of the things that we talked about at that point was families in the community and senior citizens. And so one of our concerns as we did a survey was to make sure that we reached those groups. And what we found was that 100 of the respondents were youth. And we ask youth, we didn't poo-poo them as their opinion isn't important, because we want to know, as we're trying to make a better community, what do the youth see as the reason for them to stay in this community, and what changes would they like to see in order to improve that, having even more of the youth stay. So that's why that was important. 95 of them were elderly. Yes, it was an electronic survey, so that was a chancy kind of thing. But we also had people going out there with paper surveys to contact them in that way as well. And 50% of the people who responded, believe it or not, were from families with kids in them. So I think we did a good job at, you know, getting to the heart of the population that we wanted to reach. Then we had a second round of focus group meetings where we talked about goals and strategies, and they picked out 7 key top priority strategies. They actually made lots and lots and lots and lots of goals, lots and lots of strategies, but they picked a top 7 and really pursued those a little bit more with who's responsible for these, how do these happen. And so these are the top 7. I'll just read these off, and this is really the only detail area, I promise, Steve.
Hey, this is
I
great.
Promise. Not going to get too detailed, too far into the weeds. But restaurant recruitment was such an issue that it came up in every single focus group. Even if we were talking about infrastructure, economic development, housing, community character, every single group thought that restaurant recruitment was a key piece. And so we talked about not only how to make that happen, but how to keep them here. And then bike trail development. On the survey, we saw very high scores for getting that Charlie Western Trail Bridge addressed, and I know the community's working on this. And it was funny, as we talk about this, Steve would just take those and go with them. Some of them he'd already started on too, I have to say. But anyway, I think it's going the right direction. Okay, the other ones are technical skills training. This is an area where the city can't do this alone. You know, the school was a partner and part of those focus groups in taking a look at how do we develop that technical skills training and keep our youth here, and really try to fill a void in some of those technical areas where we need those kind of workers here. So that was an important piece. And events and community center, housing improvement, expansion of broadband, and moving the fire station out of the floodplain. So those were the 7 key top priority strategies. And then after we developed those, we wanted to have an opportunity to talk to the public about those. And so we made up these storyboards and some questionnaires, or I should say it was just kind of a pop quiz almost on Charles City, and to share information about the city that citizens might not necessarily otherwise come into contact with. So a way to educate as well as to bring interest into the process. And we did get some input there that you'll see when you read the plan. I'm sure you've read every detail, right? I tried to put a lot of pictures in there for myself as well, a lot of graphs. So anyway, so you'll see some of those. A couple of key areas that they talked about, one was housing, where, we want to make sure that we're improving housing. That's not unique to Charles City, I got to say. That's something that we're hearing statewide right now, and something that the legislature sees as a key issue as well. I'm sorry, I can't get into the weeds. I got to stay on top here, right? I am a city planner. I'm being brief. Okay, so the next steps then is the approval process, really. So we took this first, of course, to Planning and Zoning Commission, as the state code says is our first step, and they made some good tweaks, I think, to the plan, and then we brought it to the City Council table, of course, tonight. The Planning and Zoning Commission will need to use the comprehensive plan as its background tool whenever it considers things related to zoning. It's required that zoning be made in accordance with the comprehensive plan. And so this is a document where you look at that map that's about the future land use plan. So if you're looking at how to rezone something, does it make sense to do one thing or another? That's a key piece that you're looking at in making sure that you're making legal changes to the code, or to the zoning ordinance, sorry. And then for council consideration tonight, you do by code have the option to adopt it as it's written, or if you want to make a modification, you can do that as well. And so next, what happens after tonight? And that's where the real excitement starts, and that is with the implementation phase, of course, although Steve's always on top of things, so he's already got that going. But so this is, first of all, a living document. You approve it tonight, but there is an option to amend it as you go forward. So depending on how the community develops, there's not a real way to know that. So we make broad brush strokes with that future land use map. But if there are things that need to change about that as we move forward, or if priority changes, or if there's, oh boy, I don't even want to say if there's another disaster out loud again, but that things change in a community, that they are a dynamic thing, and so you are able to amend the plan and make changes. The plan includes a provision to review the plan every 5 years. That's something that the P&Z, the Planning and Zoning Commission, is tasked with. But then after 10 or 15 years, you're going to probably want to take a look at updating the plan at that point to make sure that it's current with what's going on in the community. So with that, believe it or not, was that brief enough, Steve?
Yeah, it was.
I tried.
For a 3-year process, I
Yeah, it certainly is. So I just want to say thank you. I just really enjoyed being a part of this effort and really appreciate what the community was willing to do in terms of coming together and developing a shared vision for the community. So thank you. That is all I have.
Thanks, Myrtle. That was, like I say, this is an important document, so you don't want to just brush it over lightly, but I think you did a good job of being briefly comprehensive. So.
Okay, thank you. Thank you.
Thanks, Myrtle.
Thank you.
I suppose we should open the hearing, probably, now that Myrtle's already spoken, but we should definitely open the hearing. And do we have a filing of affidavit of publication?
Yes, we do, Your Honor.
How about any written comments or objections?
I did not get any. You guys get any?
No.
Any oral comments or objections? And at this point, if anybody wanted to ask Myrtle any questions, too.
I think it's a very good summary. Move to close the hearing.
Second.
Clerk will call the roll on closing the hearing.
Hammond.
Aye.
Malero.
Aye.
Star.
Aye.
Yeager.
Aye.
Friesman.
Aye.
Next then is consideration of Resolution 19618, which is approving the Charles City Comprehensive Plan. Any further discussion on?
I would so move, Your Honor.
Second.
Any further discussion? Clerk will call the roll.
Malero.
Aye.
Star.
Aye.
Yeager.
Aye.
Friesman.
Aye.
Hammond.
Motion approved, and thank you for all of your work,
Thanks,
Myrtle,
Myrtle.
and all staff that put in lots of time on this, but hopefully now we make use of this document, you know. I know some comprehensive plans go, oh, it's been that long ago, we probably should do that again, but I think we need to make use of what we've done, all the work that's been put into it,
I
so.
think that was our reaction oh wow, it's been a while.
Yeah.
So, I want to thank Myrtle for her guidance along the way, and there were some long meetings, but kept us on task, kept me on task. That is a lot in itself. So appreciate you helping us out on that.
I think we also need to thank the community members that got involved in this
Yes.
process.
Yep. Yep. All right. Well, we'll move on then to consideration of Resolution 19718, which is changing contract with King Construction for the Riverside, Illinois Street Reconstruction Project.
Back
You
us.
missed one, Dean.
Oh, I missed one?
Yeah. How about 174?
Oh, doggone, I
174.
always do that. How about 17418?
That's close enough.
Huh? That's what I meant?
That's what you meant.
It's just the numbers out of order, we should go from
Yeah,
196
that's
to
what threw me
197.
off.
That's what threw you. It's an old one.
This is a assignment of development agreement and tax increment payments. Discussion.
Yeah, what this is, and you may recall, we looked at this initially about a month or so ago, and that's why when it's got its resolution number. But Mitas Tires is merging with Trelleborg Wheel Systems, and that's been something that's been in the works for the last year or two. And after the first of the year here, they plan on making the official change, and so Mitas will become Trelleborg. And so we currently have a tax rebate agreement with Mitas for the project out there, and it's got about 3 years or so left on the rebate that we offer to them for the project. And so we're looking to transfer that agreement from Mitas to Trelleborg. And so one of the initial things that we were asked to look at was Trelleborg had some additions or amendments that they wanted to make to that agreement, which was basically just further defining how jobs were calculated in the event that some of the rebate would be reduced or deducted due to number of jobs. They wanted to put in further language to define how that would be calculated. And both the city and the county, and we're both part of this agreement, we were uncomfortable with making any changes. We felt we had an agreement that was, the agreement and the levels were based on the way it was laid out. And given the fact that it's at the tail end of the agreement, we especially wanted to keep everything the same. So we've had some negotiating back and forth. John Danos has been the one with Dorsey & Whitney Law Firm that's been working on this. And effectively, we're looking to transfer this as is. Trelleborg did agree to that. They do want to have some additional follow-up discussion and meeting about how we interpret that calculation would work in the event that we'd have to apply it. So that's something that we're going to be working on, but they were fine with the contract being the way it was and are willing to approve it. So we will be looking to do that tonight if you consider approving this, and then the county will be doing the same thing I think next week. So we'll both have it approved by the first of the year, and what was Mitas will go to Trelleborg Wheel Systems.
Any questions from Steve on this? So will they maintain the Mitas name, or will they actually change the name of the facility here to Trelleborg?
I can't say that with 100% certainty, but I think the assumption that we've all been under is that it will change to Trelleborg Wheel Systems. They already have a presence somewhere else in the state of Iowa. I think I was talking to somebody and it's Trelleborg, or maybe it's in Kentucky or Tennessee or something. But anyway, I'm pretty sure it's going to be Trelleborg.
I'm glad to hear that they're keeping the contract, or keeping the contract kind of the way it was. You know, I think that's kind of only right at this stage of the game.
Yeah, I mean, we offered, if they wanted to, come and have a meeting and sit down and discuss why they felt that was necessary, and I think, they're willing to do that, but in order to keep things moving, they're willing just to approve it the way it is, and so we'll have some further discussion about how that is applied.
I would so move.
Second.
Any further discussion? The clerk will call the roll.
Star.
Aye.
Yeager.
Aye.
Friesman.
Aye.
Hammond.
Aye.
Malero.
Aye. 174-18 is approved.
Very good.
Next, now we'll move on to 197-18, which is change in contract with King Construction. Discussion on this one.
Yes, this is the Riverside, Illinois reconstruction project. This is one of our street projects that we were working on this year. And of course, the wet weather, especially there by the river, it did delay it. Most of the project is completed except for work there at the Joslin Riverside intersection. There we had some storm sewer work, and that was really impacted by multiple flood events. So what we've worked out an agreement with, our change order with the contractor to extend the completion date, the contract completion date, until Friday, June 14th of next year. So I'd recommend the council approve Resolution 197-18 approving that change order.
Any questions for John on this one?
So move, Your Honor.
Second.
Further discussion? Clerk will call the roll.
Yeager.
Aye.
Friesman.
Aye.
Hammond.
Aye.
Malero. Star.
Aye.
Resolution passes. We'll move to Resolution 198-18, which is approving a change in contract with Kroll for the 2018 Hilda Street reconstruction project.
This is our second reconstruction project this year. And the Hilda Street project, it's a big project. It's basically it's a half mile long, 2,600 feet from Gilbert to 9th Street. And we do have everything complete from Gilbert Street up to 6th Street. But then as the wet weather was starting to impact the project, we did direct the contractor not to remove any pavement beyond 6th Street, just because we didn't want to get to the point where we'd have open street without being able to get it sealed up this year. So next year we'll continue the project, complete the work from 6th to 9th, and that's a big project all on its own. That's actually 1,300 feet. It's basically a quarter of a mile. It's a full reconstruction because that section, they have to remove the pavement, put in new sanitary, new water main, new storm sewer, and of course repaving it. So we are recommending the council approve Resolution 198-18, which is change order number 3, which will extend the completion date until Friday, August 16th of next year.
Questions for John?
We're still looking approximately the same dollar amount of that contract, just being delayed.
That's correct. These change orders are not
Right.
changing the
Not dollar related.
not dollar amount. It's just it's changing the contract.
I think it should be noted that we're real happy. I think that you delayed that project, delayed the removal of those last 3 blocks, because that'd be a mess if those people there without a street all winter. So
Yeah.
that's good. I'd so move.
Second.
John, does this include the alley along Dollar General also?
Yeah, that would also be a
Or Dollar Tree?
Dollar Tree. That alley would be paved next year as well.
Okay.
It's got a much better gravel base there, I can guarantee you that.
Huh.
We put a lot of gravel in that alley this summer.
Any further discussion? Clerk will call the roll.
Friesman.
Aye.
Hammond.
Aye.
Malero.
Aye.
Star. Yeager.
Aye.
Next, we'll consider Resolution 19918, which is releasing a lien on forgivable loan for a property located on Waller Street.
Heidi had another commitment tonight, so she couldn't make it, so I told her I'd cover for her. So don't ask any hard questions. This is basically just standard procedure. This is a property owner who had participation in our owner-occupied rehab grant program from 2012. And one of the requirements of that program is that they maintain that residence, live there for 5 years. This person has upheld that end of the bargain, so now it is time to forgive that lien on there, which it's sitting on there. It's a forgivable loan, so we need to release that lien and clean up her deed. So Heidi is recommending that we approve this.
If we can get some questions on that.
Any discussion?
And it is their primary residence yet?
Correct.
They
It's got
own
the
it
homestead.
and it's there.
It's got the homestead credit on it, so correct.
Second.
Thank you for asking an easy question, Lane.
And believe me, I was trying to think of a better one.
You and Jerry both. Jerry was over here too.
Any further discussion? Not the clerk will call the roll on this one.
Hammond.
Aye.
Malero.
Aye.
Star.
Aye.
Yeager.
Aye.
Friesman.
Aye.
To make it that easy on you.
Next is Resolution 218, which is setting a date for a public hearing on the vacation of a section of South Jackson Street. Discussion here.
Yes, what this item is because of the work going on at the courthouse for the new law enforcement center, the county needs to, or they're requesting that South Jackson Street be vacated between Court and Gilbert. The new law enforcement center will extend from the west side of the courthouse to the west across the Jackson Street right-of-way to that area to the west of Jackson Street. There are no city-owned utilities in this area, as part of the building project construction, they're taking care of the other utilities as well. So we would recommend that the council set a date for a public hearing on this matter at the next council meeting, January 7th at 6 p.m.
Questions for John? I think we talked about this, actually, this has been talked about for a long time, even when they went into the plans for doing this project, so.
Yeah, so move.
Second.
Further discussion?
Just want to see them get started and get going.
I'm sure they probably feel the same way, huh? Clerk will call the roll.
Malero.
Aye.
Star.
Aye.
Yeager.
Aye.
Friesman.
Aye.
Hammond.
Aye.
Passes, and the public hearing will be on January 7th. Next is Resolution 20118, which is setting a public hearing on Ordinance 1124, which is a rezoning of properties located at 101 and 111 South Jackson Street. Discussion.
Well, this is also because of the new law enforcement center project. The courthouse is currently zoned B3, and the old car wash is B3. There's two properties that are zoned R3, and for the jail, the county's requesting that it be rezoned from R3 to B3. Now, the Planning and Zoning Commission, they have met. They've had a public hearing on this matter, and they are recommending that the rezoning be approved by the City Council. So I'd recommend approval resolution 20118, setting a date and a time for a public hearing at the next council meeting.
Questions on this one?
Wait, so move.
Second. And again, this is the properties that were being demolished for the courthouse, so.
Right. Pretty simple.
Clerk will call the roll.
Star.
Aye.
Yeager.
Aye.
Friesman.
Aye.
Hammond.
Aye.
Malero.
Resolution 201-18, saying the date for January 7th is approved. Next, we'll go to letter L, what we amended the agenda, which is consider resolution 204-18 to approve a parking waiver request from Floyd County, again associated with the Law Enforcement Center.
Yeah, and this, we discussed this at the last planning session. Within section 22 of the zoning ordinance, there's requirements for off-street parking. And one of those requirements is that when a parking lot is adjacent to a residential property, there has to be a setback of at least 15 feet from the parking lot to the property line. Now, the council can waive any part of the off-street parking requirements as long as the Planning and Zoning Commission has met, and they also are, they give a favorable report on waiving that requirement. The Planning and Zoning Commission, they did discuss this, and what the waiver is with the site plan to get the building and all the parking in, they can, the site plan can allow for 12 feet of property between the parking lot and the property line, so they're 3 feet short of the required 15. But they will be providing evergreen shrubbery as additional screening. So we do feel that it's that separation is being, the intent of the separation is being met. And the Planning and Zoning Commission, they are recommending that the council approve this waiver. So I'd recommend the council approve Resolution 204-18, approving this waiver.
Any questions on this one?
So move.
Second. Further discussion? Clerk will call the roll.
Yeager.
Aye.
Friesman.
Aye.
Hammond.
Aye.
Malero.
Aye.
Star.
Aye. Next is consideration of the second reading of Ordinance 1123, which is rezoning of 500 North Grand Avenue. Discussion on this one.
Yes. This is the second reading of this ordinance, and the ordinance is for the rezoning of the 500 North Grand building, the old middle school. As we've discussed, the school district is wanting to convey this and sell this as part of a bigger package for residential housing, for multifamily housing. And it's currently zoned R2, which does not allow for apartments and for multifamily dwellings. So the request is to rezone it from R2 to R3, the entire site. Now, immediately across the street to the west of North Grand, there is R3 zoning, so this is just an expansion of that R3 zoning across North Grand to take in the 500 North Grand building. Planning and Zoning Commission, they've met and they've looked at this. They've held a public hearing, and they are recommending that the matter be approved. At the last council meeting, the council held a public hearing. There were no comments received on this, and a first reading was held at the last meeting, so I'd recommend approval of the second reading tonight.
Any questions at all?
Have there been any comments or questions of anyone since first reading?
No, I have not received anything.
No. So move.
Second.
Further discussion? Clerk will call the roll.
Friesman.
Aye.
Hammond.
Aye.
Malero.
Aye.
Star.
Aye.
Yeager.
Aye.
Motion passed. We'll have the second reading of Ordinance 1123.
An ordinance amending the zoning classification of parcels located in Charles City Addition and the subdivision of Lot 1 of the irregular survey of the southwest fractional quarter of the southwest fractional quarter of Section 6, Township 95 North, Range 15 West of the 5th PM from R-2 General Residence District to R-3 Multifamily Residence District.
Thank you. Didn't you do the first reading also?
Yep, I noticed there was nobody that was real quick to jump on this one either.
We have to share the wealth on the third reading for somebody else, huh?
I ain't gonna sit here all night waiting for somebody to make a motion.
We'll ram it down and
All right, next is consideration of Resolution 202-18, accepting deed. Discussion on this one.
Yeah, so this is in regard to our wastewater treatment plant project, or what will be known as the Water Resource Recovery Facility. This is the deed accepting the purchase of property from Kevin and Becky McEnany. They're buying their property down there, which will allow us to construct the reed beds and the equalization basin.
need
Any
a motion.
questions there?
I
Yeah.
so move.
Second.
Further discussion?
Everything is all closed up then, Steve, or will be once this is?
We'll be fairly soon. We've cut a check for the earnest money, and so the actual closing date is.
We're still on schedule to close on or around the 28th, so I'll
Okay.
put together a closing statement. I did talk to their attorney, and he was going to deliver the signed deed, I think, sometime before the 28th.
Okay, super.
28th of December.
Correct.
Almost Christmas part.
Further discussion? Clerk will call the roll.
Hammond.
Aye.
Malero.
Aye.
Starr.
Aye.
Yeager.
Aye.
Friesman.
Aye. Thank you to everybody that worked on that. I know it was a interesting process,
Right.
but it will be good, I believe, for the city in the long run.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it's worth the time and effort.
The equalization basin and reed beds are a critical part of this project, so we need it.
Well, next we have Resolution 203-18, approving preliminary plans for the 2018 sanitary sewer lining project and setting the date for the public hearing.
Yes, this is our annual project of lining sanitary sewers. And this year, we're going to line approximately 8,400 lineal feet. And where the lining will be held at is up on North Ohio, North Missouri, North Grand, all north of, and 14th Avenue and 13th Avenue. And what this year, we will actually complete all the lining that we have to do north of the railroad tracks. And what the resolution will set the letting date for the project is on January 17th, and then the hearing will be held on January 21st at 6 p.m. So I'd recommend approval of Resolution 203-18, setting those two dates, and authorizing the clerk to publish the notice.
So move, Your Honor.
Second.
Any discussion? Clerk will call the roll.
Malero.
Aye.
Starr.
Aye.
Yeager.
Aye.
Friesman.
Aye.
Hammond.
Aye.
Next is letter J, consider a motion to close city offices for the full day on December 24th. Discussion here.
Yeah, we talked about this at our workshop the other day, last Wednesday, and with the way it sits right now, I guess it hasn't changed. Christmas Eve this year is on Monday, and so Christmas Day is on Tuesday. Christmas Day is a full day off for city employees, and Christmas Eve is a half day off for city employees. And the request that we put forth was to consider closing City Hall for those 4 hours on Monday, in effect giving a full day off for the city, with the assumption that it's going to be a pretty slow day with the city, and that we don't expect to have much traffic flow, and so with that, we made the request to council to consider closing for that full day, effectively giving 4 additional hours of holiday time, I guess, to staff. And I know there was some question on how that would have an overall impact on the city. And so, when you by looking at doing that, we're essentially looking at granting 4 hours of additional holiday time to everybody in the city. So, whether it be our police officers or firefighters are working, they're working that holiday. They get 4 hours additional holiday time to use it at another time. So in this instance, they'd have an additional 4 hours, and that would be the case for pretty much everybody. So, we've got I think about 62 full-time employees right now, 4 hours each. It's 248 total hours that we would be gifting everybody. We wouldn't have a hard cost. It wouldn't cost us anything monetarily, but it would cost us hours of time worked and time received. So just to give you an idea of what it entails to do that, I mean, it would be, I know, greatly appreciated by those with the city, but there is some cost to it. So that's essentially kind of what we're looking at. We would, if it happens to be a snow day and we call people in, we might have some additional time that would be paid at time and a half. That could be the case. But all in all, we're looking at paying out some additional in kind, or with actual time off rather than hard dollars. So.
But there still is a dollar cost to that.
Yeah.
Also at an average wage of.
It's right around just under $6,000 of actual cash value.
Yeah.
If we had to pay out those hours.
Right.
So, and I just took I took everybody's wage and calculated that out. So, somewhere around $5,800 actually.
So like you're saying, it's a cash value. We're not paying that. We're just missing out on that amount of work.
That's correct.
Yeah.
I got some numbers from Jenny. First of all, I'm in favor of going ahead and doing this because I think we've got a good crew and they've been very cooperative in many areas that we need help on, and I'm not opposed to it at all. But I took the latest payroll and went through the numbers, what the gross pay and the Social Security and the IPERS and so on. And basically, our payroll, these are rough numbers, of course, runs about $14,700 per day. So we're actually talking about $7,350 in soft pay, so to speak. That's a lot of money, but it's $7,000. But the practicality of this on a Monday morning versus, it doesn't make sense not to, but I just wanted to point out what the cost is. So I'm all in favor. I move we go ahead with it.
Second.
Any further discussion? I know we talked about this a little bit at the workshop, but I don't think it was.
Yeah, my numbers, I just figured straight wage plus longevity.
Yeah.
I didn't figure any of the benefits in.
I just over
That
the
would be the
top on it,
difference.
yeah.
Any other comments from anybody? Clerk will call the roll.
Starr.
Aye.
Yeager.
Aye.
Friesman.
Aye.
Hammond.
Aye.
Malero. Thank you, guys.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah, I think like.
Well, that go for the city clerk too?
Oh, Santa is
Thought there was some
watching.
exceptions in there.
Gosh, darn it.
You still gotta come in to fill the furnace to make sure that, fill the coal.
Throw the logs in.
Yeah.
Make sure it's warm. I would do that.
Can't refill the coal until you get it the next day.
Yeah. It's true.
Be well stoked on the 26th.
Oh, gosh.
And we'll probably be addressing this again for New Year's, won't we?
We're open all day on New Year's. We don't get any time off
And the
on
day
New Year's
before?
Eve. On New Year's Eve, yep, no.
Well, the Monday before you'll be open.
Not as much for traveling holidays where Christmas would be.
Yeah, that's kind of my thought, too.
That's kind of how I took it as well.
Okay.
Wait,
All
do you
right.
want to give it to me?
No.
Okay.
Jerry's just giving out, just
Give him a Santa hat.
Next is consideration of a motion to amend the Park Avenue TIF District certification. We'll have a discussion on this one, Steve.
Yeah, basically, we, at our last meeting there in November, we approved our TIF certifications for the year. And that was all well. I spent some additional time working through the Park Avenue TIF district, just looking at the reconciliation and the dollars we're actually receiving in through the TIF district, because each of the last at least 3 to 4 years, we've just, we haven't asked for a specific amount. We've asked for everything available in Park Avenue TIF. And that's due to the fact that it's ending soon, and we have those allied projects that we're paying on, and we have those obligations. But looking at those, how they run their course, and I put the spreadsheet on here, you can kind of see how it works out. Those are, we have sufficient funds on hand to cover the costs of those, and plus the new amendments that we just put in. So essentially, we were able to decrease that full amount request down to a smaller amount, which is $25,000. That TIF area, as of last year, was up to right at about $200,000 it was bringing in. So we're able to reduce that asking by about $175,000, which is a good place to be for all of us, because then that opens up more money for general fund. With that TIF district phasing out, I didn't want to get in a spot where if we asked for the full amount, which is what we had done, that we would get more money than we probably would need for the entire project, and then you're trying to decertify and gift, and send that back. So thought best to try and do that here if we could yet this year. Talking to the county and the auditor's office, they were fine with amending it, so I changed that, and so I have submitted it as it's listed in here, and I just want to obviously get your approval on that. But it has been verified with the county. They verified all those numbers for all the TIF districts this morning, and so we're looking at reducing that the TIF request, and then we also are decertifying quite a bit of debt on there too. That's the reduction of $153,445. So seek the council's approval to approve that amended certification.
I think it's great that we can do this. So move.
Second.
Thanks for staying on top of that.
Any other discussion? Clerk will call the roll on this one.
Yeager.
Aye.
Friesman.
Aye.
Hammond.
Aye.
Malero.
Aye.
Starr.
Next is Resolution 20518, which is an approving agreement for design services with Martin Gardner for the 401 North Main building.
Yeah, so we looked at this at a workshop the other night. We've been putting some funds back each of the last couple of years for the 401 North Main building, knowing that we've got windows and doors that need to be replaced. And so in looking at that project and looking to get that on schedule to get that completed, there was some additional work that we thought, well, while we're at this, we've talked about having, an area that could be designated as a visitor center, which is essentially an area that would have 24/7 access, and have brochures and maps and everything people that might be coming to town would need from a visitor standpoint. Having it right there at the chamber and office with the tourism and all that seems to be a wise decision. So by doing that, we started to get a little bit more into the structural nature of the building, what we can and can't do, and so we felt that we really need to bring on an architect to kind of help us through this process. So we reached out to Martin Gardner Architecture. They are based out of Cedar Rapids. Their rep that we've been working with lives in Nashua. I'm familiar with them. I worked with them when they were Gardner Architecture out of Strawberry Point, so I know a lot of the people there, and I know they do good work. And so we looked at signing an agreement with them to do this work. One of the things that was mentioned the other night was getting a timeline or a deadline for completion. So with that, I asked Mark to put that together, and you can see in the attachment there they kind of have a timeline for work laid out. It's real, tentative until we can meet and fully discuss and narrow it down. But as you can see, they're showing a June 11th completion date. Could be done as soon as then, and we were talking August, September. So I think the project could move along as fast as we'd like it to. We don't want to move it along too fast because we're going to need to fund additional dollars in fiscal year 20, I feel. But nonetheless, this is the agreement that they sent back that I'd like the council to consider approving.
The way I read this, finalizing the design part of it's in early January, mid-January. So that would allow us enough time to get some decent bids or get it in and hopefully get a contractor that can complete it by June 11th,
Yeah,
hopefully.
hopefully. I mean, when we met with them, we said, well, we'd like to do this as soon as possible, of course.
I would so move.
Second. I guess I just had there was a question the other night. I think Keith, you'd asked it about the need for the 24-hour area there. Did you get your question answered or figured out?
No, I'll talk about it another time.
To me, this seems like the best time to talk about it.
Any further discussion? Clerk will call the roll.
Friesman.
Aye.
Hammond.
Aye.
Malero.
Aye.
Star.
Aye.
Yeager.
Aye.
All right, well, we'll hopefully meet that aggressive agenda, huh? That'll be nice to have that. Those windows are not very energy efficient.
Well, the doors
And the
really
doors,
do freeze
yeah.
shut. I
And the
mean,
cooling water
Not
above the
good.
electrical outlets is, I'm sure, a wonderful item to remove.
All right, move on to consider a motion to go into closed session pursuant to Iowa Code Chapter 21.5J to discuss acquisition of property.
So move.
Second.
Clerk will call the roll.
Hammond.
Aye.
Malero.
Aye.
Star.
Aye.
Yeager.
Aye.
Friesman.
Aye.
We will go into closed session.
See ya.
Hey, Kelly.
You too. Merry Christmas.
Pass it along. Shouldn't have to take very little.